All right, just like that, we are off, and let's just jump right into our next presentation here. We have founder and CEO of Jaguar Health. It's ticker JAGX. It's Lisa Conte. Lisa, are you out there? How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing? Good morning.
Very nice to see you and very nice to meet you. I will let you have the floor. Take it away.
Okay, and I'm getting my screen up. There, can you see it? Everything good?
Everything's good.
All right, away we go. Okay, nice to see everybody. We'll dispense with the forward-looking statements and move right on to what we do. We do all drug discovery from plants used traditionally in tropical areas, leveraging the knowledge of shamans, healers, and rainforest areas to do more efficient drug discovery and development. And we did take a product all the way from a tree growing in the rainforest to a first-in-class FDA-approved anti-secretory agent. The generic name is crofelemer. The trade name is Mytesi. Mytesi is plant-based, it's natural, it's organic, it's sustainably harvested, it's fair trade.
Hey, Lisa, real quick, sorry to interrupt you. There is a little bar at the bottom of your presentation. I just don't want your presentation to get covered. See, there's a little hide button. Click that little hide button.
Thank you.
No problem.
You think we'd be better at this after 18 months of it?
I don't agree with that statement at all. That's why I wanted to help.
Thanks a lot. Anyway, this natural product is, in fact, an FDA-approved drug, and it is the only oral drug that is approved by the FDA under botanical guidance, which confers an exclusivity advantage since there is no pathway to a generic. So while we have a full IP portfolio, which I'll talk about later, we do essentially have exclusivity forever. So Mytesi is approved now for the specialty indication of HIV-related diarrhea. Specialty, another word, is a relatively small, very important market opportunity, the patient population and the need, but a relatively small patient population. Ultimately, peak sales in the United States will be probably $50 to $70 million. What's really exciting about the Mytesi opportunity is that it is a pipeline within a product with multiple follow-on indications, most of which we already have proof of concept or phase 2 data in hand. And in fact, one indication that is in a final single pivotal phase 3 clinical trial right now. So we can't do everything initially. We'll eventually get there. And so the first 3 follow-on indications that we're pursuing are cancer therapy-related diarrhea. This is the one which is in a phase 3 pivotal trial. A rare disease, an orphan indication for crofelemer called short bowel syndrome with the associated intestinal failure, and then a second generation anti-secretory agent for cholera, which is being pursued with the financial incentive of a tropical disease priority review voucher from the FDA. To give some idea of the opportunities here, blockbuster in terms of number of patients, unmet medical needs with a first-in-class agent that is being pursued, and third-party market research that shows, for example, cancer therapy-related diarrhea, supportive care in the anti-nausea field is expected to be about a $3 billion market, and that is less prevalent than the diarrhea. Nausea products are typically taken for the first 3 days of a chemo cycle, whereas diarrhea is persisting with targeted therapy for a year or more. Short bowel syndrome, a rare disease, close to a $5 billion market is expected to where it's going to go. And this type of estimate doesn't even include a new mechanism in entry like crofelemer. And then, as I mentioned, the priority review voucher, those sell anywhere from $80 to $350 million, depending at the time when you get them, on average about $150 million. So overall, the enterprise value of this company are the additional shots on goal for crofelemer, for Mytesi, cancer short bowel syndrome, cholera. Each of these programs is funded and matched with funding that is non-dilutive. A royalty program off the sales of Mytesi that we currently have, a prior sale of part of the priority review voucher, and the short bowel syndrome is being funded through a license agreement with a subsidiary that we have in Europe, and we'll talk about that more going forward. In the very near term, the value drivers include a consummation of a merger between our subsidiary in Europe and funding that is coming from a SPAC in Europe called the Dragon SPAC. So that the Dragon SPAC is funded, the merger documents have been signed, and they are literally going through administrative business activities, governmental filings in Italy right now, and we expect to have that merger consummated in the first or second week of October, which triggers then the license agreement between the Italian subsidiary and the parent corporation with typical license terms, upfront payments, milestone payments, royalties, transfer pricing, and also the pursuit and the generation of clinical data for short bowel syndrome, which will then be shared and available to the parent organization to pursue approval in the United States. Also, the parent organization will continue to be the majority shareholder of the Italian subsidiary, which is called NAPO EU, which unlocks the value through the equity participation of the parent organization into the subsidiary. Also in the near term, we do have a small business in the animal health area, and we do have crofelemer for dogs, for chemotherapy-induced diarrhea in dogs, that we expect to launch in December of this year. We just had a final approval or final acceptance of a key technical piece of our new animal drug application announced last week. This will be a conditional approval. It's like an orphan drug designation for animals. And with the launch of that product, this will be our first prescription entry into the animal health area. Coincident in December on the human side, while we are in the midst of a phase 3 clinical trial for regulatory approval, there was an investigator-initiated trial which was looking at breast cancer patients on Herceptin and diarrhea associated with that. That study completed, and the investigators, the academic investigators, submitted it to the very prestigious San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference, and that data is expected to be released at the conference in December of this year as well. Just a quickie on animal health. As I said, it's a relatively small part of our business, but this will be important over the next couple of years. Thanks to the pandemic, we're close to 100 million dogs in the United States right now. 25% at some point are going to develop a tumor, and over half of those over the age of 10 will develop cancer, which ends up being close to 500,000 dogs a year. And in the animal health area, people are typically paying out of pocket. Even if they have insurance, the insurance is reimbursing what they paid out of the pocket. So you don't have the reimbursement organizations that you have on the chargebacks on the human area. So your gross revenue is pretty close to your net revenue. So if people are paying anywhere from $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to put their dog through cancer therapy, how much would they be willing to pay to make sure, A, the dog can stay on the therapy? About 40% end up having to go off their cancer therapy or reduce the dose because of diarrhea and side effects. Secondly, to keep the dog comfortable. That's what this is all about when you're treating dogs later in life. And thirdly, the comfort and the quality of life for the whole family, so the dog doesn't lose control when he or she comes home, the carpet, the couch, the bed. So we feel, well, we don't put out guidance, we feel that this could be about as important as the specialty market we currently have with Mytesi for HIV-related diarrhea. It really fills a nice revenue gap while we're waiting for our larger follow-on indications, for example, in cancer therapy-related diarrhea in humans to come on board. Overall, philosophy of the company is risk mitigation. So our pipeline, our shots on goal, are for a product that is already approved and is already approved with a chronic indication. So, for example, we have 2 years carcinogenicity already completed. We also have a full supply chain in place. We take this product from a tree growing in the rainforest to a bottle, if anybody can see me, that you can find in essentially any pharmacy in the United States. That's the two most common reasons why new drug applications fail: manufacturing and safety. So we do spend the time to work with the FDA to make sure we have agreement on phase 3 pivotal trial design, endpoint definition, statistics, so that when we complete the phase 3 clinical trial, we don't have a regulatory surprise. We also have global unencumbered rights to crofelemer, and it is therefore a white piece of paper for us to determine how to partner and how to bring this product to all populations in need around the world. And that, again, is a nice source of non-dilutive funding for our pursuits here in the United States. What's important about this product and why it can benefit so many different patient populations is what it does and what it doesn't do. So it is an anti-secretory agent which normalizes ion flow, normalizes water flow in an abnormally affected gut. So if you are iron normal, you can take a whole bottle of Mytesi, nothing happens. What it doesn't do is it's not an opioid, so it doesn't have the risk of constipation. It's not systemically absorbed. So we don't have a first pass effect, we don't have drug-drug interactions, we don't have secondary metabolites causing problems later on. It's not an antibiotic, so we don't have resistance, we don't have the addictive risk. Safety is a very huge hallmark associated with this product. So bringing gut function back to normal in multiple populations, whether it's cancer therapy-related diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, functional diarrhea, and of course short bowel syndrome as well. So I'll talk a bit about the cancer indication that we're pursuing right now. Chemotherapy-induced diarrhea is the most common side effect, and there's no drugs that have been tested and approved specifically in this patient population. At ASCO this year, there were 3 third-party publications that show that about 40% of patients, which is similar to what we saw in the dog market as well, will discontinue their chemotherapy because of diarrhea. They will go off of their life-saving therapy, or they'll go to a subtherapeutic dose, or they'll have to take a chemo holiday because of diarrhea. We also, those publications found that it costs 3 times as much to take care of a cancer patient with diarrhea as one without. So getting the patient hospitalized, getting them rehydrated. And what that means is we're now moving from a supportive care arena to supportive care and outcome intervention, cost benefit, outcome benefit as well. The pivotal trial is ongoing right now. It'll be 256 patients. This is, in fact, placebo-controlled against Mytesi, the drug that is already approved, so expanding the label for an already approved drug, and we expect it to be completed the patient enrollment to be completed by the end of 2022. The next indication that I'll mention briefly is short bowel syndrome. This is a rare disease. We do have orphan designation in the United States and have just filed for orphan designation in Europe as well. This is a catastrophic event where a patient goes from a normal intestinal length of about 20-25 feet to less than 5 feet, sometimes as little as 30 centimeters. And what happens then is the patient is not able to function with the normal secretions and absorptions, the inputs and the outputs, this nutritional absorption of the nutrients of life, the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates, the vitamins. So they end up on parenteral nutrition. What we're looking for here is an intervention before the patient might go on growth hormone, which is approved which is utilized in less than 3% of the patients, appropriate in less than 3% of the patients, and has cardiotoxicity, endocrinology toxicity associated with it, or other even more drastic interventions. If we could reduce that parenteral nutrition by even 20%, that is a highly valued endpoint. And now we've moved along the value chain from supportive care, outcome intervention to disease management intervention as well. These are patients that typically are costing the healthcare system about $500,000 a year, and that's without complications. So a recent study came out and found that after surgery that resulted in short bowel syndrome, only 40% of the patients survived after 2 years, only 17% after 5 years. So severe mortality and morbidity. This will be a distinct formulation from Mytesi. It will be a highly concentrated liquid formulation so that it's not a big insult to the patient's gut. And then we'll have financial and reimbursement that is typically associated with a rare disease and orphan indication. This indication is the initial pursuit of NAPO EU. This is the subsidiary that is the subject of a merger and funding with the Italian SPAC, which will be consummated in the beginning of October. NAPO EU has just hired a wonderful management team that will be pursuing this clinical indication, and that data will be shared as part of the license agreement with the parent organization, Jaguar, here in the United States, to support our filing and our pursuit of a label for short bowel syndrome in the United States. Mytesi, the current specialty indication, we have about 20 million in gross sales in 2021. You can see in the second quarter of 2020, there was about a five-fold increase in our gross and net sales. That had to do with putting in place an expansive patient access program to provide hub service, specialty pharmacy services, help with the prior authorizations, an expanded copay program. So to really help the patients get through the reimbursement situation. This was the first product that we ever launched, and we had to learn by hard knocks how difficult it is sometimes for the patients to get a first-in-class product reimbursed. We do have an early-stage discovery program in psychoactive and psychedelic plants that are focused on mental health disorders, mood disorders. It's a very exciting, burgeoning area. There are several well-capitalized companies that are all chasing pretty much the same compounds: psilocybin, MDMA, ketamine. There's about 7 of them. What we can provide is exactly what we did with crofelemer, the front-end discovery process to come up with those second-generation psychoactive and psychedelic plants that can lead to second-generation compounds, new ways of treating and potentially curing mental health disorders. And this is a program that is a subject of discussions for a business development collaboration. We will do what we do best on the front end and look to the partner for clinical, regulatory, and commercial assistance. We have a lot of news, we have a lot of volume, and it's pretty meaty, typically focused on products and financial and business development activities, including the near-term drivers, as I mentioned, between now and the end of the year. We do have about 50 million shares outstanding. We did a reverse split a couple of weeks ago because we were out of authorized shares, and with our high retail holding and high volume, it was difficult for us to get the vote of more than 50% of the shares outstanding to expand the authorized shares. So we did a 3-to-1 reverse split. We now have about 50 million fully diluted shares outstanding, about another 100 million that are authorized. And with no fundamental change in the company, we ended up losing about half the value from the impact of the reverse split. We felt that, or I felt that, I'll speak for myself, that was a buying opportunity, and I, in fact, did buy at a premium after the reverse split with my CFO, with one of our largest shareholders who is the sponsor of the SPAC merging with NAPO EU, and our large manufacturer in Italy. Management team is remarkable. There are 10 of us who've been together for over 15 years, 3 of us who have been together for over 30 years, so great institutional knowledge about this product. The board also is a wonderful combination of finance, operational, legal. Jim Buchnowski has invested in almost every single round over about a 30-year period of time. So quick summary, we are a commercial organization for a specialty market with Mytesi. Crofelemer, though, has multiple shots on goal as a pipeline within a product, moving, progressing from supportive care to impact on outcome, cost of treatment, and modifying disease management. We do pair our clinical program pursuits with non-dilutive financing, more of which we're pursuing in the future with business development relationships. We do have our first animal drug product coming out for chemotherapy-induced diarrhea in dogs in December. Strong management team, and as I mentioned, we do have a portfolio of about 144 patents pending, being filed all the time. However, the exclusivity is secured by the botanical guide, the approval under botanical guidance. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I've left a minute or two for a question.
Yeah, we got a couple questions here. I have a question, and then we got a pretty good question from the audience. Can you speak about any potential partners for Mytesi?
Yeah, so there's partnerships that we are looking for are outside the United States. So our plans is to continue to do the commercialization. We have a direct sales force for HIV, continue to do the development and commercialization for the United States market, and seeking partners around the world in two areas. One for Mytesi and all the follow-on indications. It has to be a partner that can handle cancer as well as irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, so the GI indications, because it's the same product. And then separate for the rare disease, the orphan indication of, for example, short bowel syndrome, where it is a completely different formulation and a separate product. And you want a company that understands how to play, how to educate, how to promote in the rare disease field.
Sure.
We've taken one step there with the license to NAPO EU, which covers the European territory.
Awesome. That's going to be all the time we have for questions, unfortunately, Lisa, but thank you very much for joining us. Lisa Conte, she's founder and CEO of Jaguar Health. It's ticker JAGX. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.